Good morning. You're very welcome to this session. The Health Research Institute, so I'm director of the University of Limerick's Health Research Institute. And, we're very pleased to be a very diverse group of researchers, a very multidisciplinary group of researchers. And one of those, prime examples of that multidisciplinary, and especially the inclusion of arts and humanities in our research work, is, the work you're going to see presented today. The session today, it encapsulates all that's good about, that multidisciplinary research. It links into different of our research clusters, to the aging research cluster, to the participatory health research cluster, and it links to a lot of other researchers within our research institute. Hilary has, done fantastic work in preparing this. The research area is a national leader. Hilary's work is nationally leading of international importance. And it, is an exemplar of the type of research and the inclusivity that we like to see involving participants from our research in the design of the work and having a say in how it's undertaken. I think we're going to get a great flavour of that today from Hilary and her colleagues. So I'm very excited to see what we're going to hear today from our various speakers. I think it's a very different type of presentation to the others we've got. Very few of them have musical interludes. It's definitely a kind of very different approach and quite an exciting one to see and to chair. Just to note on a kind of housekeeping thing that we're on quite a tight time schedule. So what we'll do is we'll go through all the speakers, and if we're lucky, there'll be time at the end for questions. So rather than questions to each speaker, if you do have something that's burning, please save it to the end and ask the speakers at the end. So our first speaker is Professor Hilary Moss. And Hilary is from the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance and is a leader in this research. So I'm really excited to introduce Hilary and what she's going to say here today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really exciting to be here today with all my colleagues, and I want to thank them all because we are a team that have created all of this research. And I think the powerhouses that really have supported us are the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance, the Health Research Institute, particularly the Participatory Health Research Cluster and the Aging Research Cluster. So I'm going to get myself sorted here. I'm going to give you a little overview of the research we've been doing, and then my colleagues will talk more about all of them. And I need to just also welcome the most important people in the room are Kevin and Helen Quaid, who are experts by experience, and they're going to share their experience, and I'm grateful that they've travelled here to be with us this morning. So dementia, many of you will know, is a very difficult illness to live with, and the numbers in our country and across the world are increasing. It's a set of cognitive and behavioural symptoms that leads to the progressive deterioration of cognitive function. And there are all kinds of issues and symptoms that go with it. And I need to just clear this question first. What is music therapy? Music therapy isn't actually that new. We've been working with people with dementia for over 40 years, and there is a body of evidence. So music therapy is an evidence-based profession. So we work alongside speech and language therapists, occupational therapists. We are not yet registered with CORU, but not for the want of trying as a profession. And we basically use music and the evidence we have about the benefits of music for people with dementia to promote health and use music experiences and relationships that develop through them as dynamic forces of change. And I thought the best way to tell you what music therapy is to show you a very brief video. So this is a colleague of mine, Billa Hassi, who teaches with us at the Academy, and Mary, and both have very generously allowed me to share this. So what you'll see here is a music therapy session. Mary can't really have verbal conversations anymore. She has moderate level dementia. And you'll see, I hope, the amount of conversation they're having through music. This is all improvisation. Neither of them have planned this. Mary doesn't play the piano. This is her just using an instrument to communicate. And you'll also see, I think, some of the intimacy that you can have in a relationship through music. So the research here at UL, at the music therapy research, I'm going to give you a little run-around tour of what we've been doing. So we began with singing groups for people living with dementia and their family carers with my colleague, Dr. Sophie Lee, who graduated from her PhD a couple of years ago. And this is built from years of practice. So I worked for 20 years with people with dementia prior to coming to UL 8 years ago. And then with Lisa Kelly, who is going to talk a lot about two specific projects, we designed a musical pathway to guide music therapists and carers and people with dementia about how to use music at the right time, in the right place, and the right kind of music. So one of my pet projects is how music can cause harm. So we know in Guantanamo Bay, for example, that music was used as a form of torture. And in my experience working in hospitals, there are so many stories of music being harmful to people, being played at the wrong time at bedside, or not wanting to hear it, or hearing somebody sing out of tune because they happen to be in a hospital bed. So this was something about looking at how we can guide people to select music that will help them at different stages of their illness. And Lisa and her team really came up with an amazing pathway that's really useful. So also alongside that, we developed a project called Together in Song, which was an attempt to document how to run a group for people in community settings using music. So it's a very simple guide, but it took a lot of research to present this. So we now have a kind of guide for working with older people in the community. And then an offshoot, which has also become part of our work with people with dementia and their carers, is mindful music. So this was actually a request from the HR Wellbeing to offer a mindful music therapy program. So we offered a workshop using mindfulness and music. And the results, the staff were so excited about this that we were really quite surprised. And so I developed a research program around it. And we now, for the last year and a half, I've been working with a group online, with a group of family carers who come for mindful music. And Helena is a member of that group, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And with Ita and Lisa, we've put together a proposal to the IRC to fund a project looking at how we can roll that out nationally and possibly make it a product, a kind of commercial product that can be used. And then the other big area is the telehealth work. So Lisa really started looking at that during COVID and thinking about older people who are rurally isolated and whether we could provide music therapy online. And we've started some piloting of that, again, with Ita's expertise. But the last piece of work, and one of the really important ones, is arts-based research to illuminate the lived experience of living with dementia. So if you think about films or books, often we understand the experience of the person with an illness through an art form, maybe in a way that we wouldn't if we read a book of symptoms. So if you think something like King Lear, where the protagonist has a full breakdown and possibly cognitive decline, you learn a lot about the human person in a different way. And that's really the basis of the work I've been doing around arts-based research. So we're going to hear a performance now which will illuminate that in just a moment. But I think all of those very disparate projects have underlying core values, and these are the values of the research. So all the research is community engaged, participant led, and has a practical, useful application. And research is growing from practice in the field. So both Lisa and I, for example, would see clients every week and work with people. And it keeps it real and it keeps it relevant to the people we're working with. And of course, we engage in PPI, the process, in order to ensure that what we're doing is relevant. Music and the arts provide an alternative lens through which we can understand, reflect, and know. And this interdisciplinary research is so important in terms of what the humanities bring and STEM bring together. And I think we're in a time in our culture where we're in danger of losing some of the humanities in the conversation if we're not careful. The arts can be a conduit for storytelling, for giving people an opportunity to tell their story, and you'll hear more about that with the song that Kevin and Helen were involved in. And the arts are essential parts of what it is to be human, and whether you're in hospital or you're disabled, you have a right to have access to the arts. And I used to have to fight for that in a hospital setting all the time, because I think it's one of the few places in the world where we don't really have access to music that we want. So this is just the flyer for the carers support group. If you happen to know anyone who might benefit, they're very welcome to join us. And as I said, Helena will be talking about this in a moment. And I'm going to move straight on, because I know time is short, to our first performance. So you're going to hear a movement from a work by the renowned Irish composer Ian Wilson. It's called Autumn Leaves, and it's from a work called Therefore I Am. This work was composed when Ian was in residence, as composer in residence at Tala Hospital. And at the time I was working there, and the Irish Chamber Orchestra were also an orchestra in residence at the hospital. So the musicians were already coming in and out at that time. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the work before you hear it. So this 6-movement chamber work is a reflection on the composer's experience and learning about dementia. Ian Wilson was given full access, and this is where interdisciplinary work really works, because the full clinical team gave him access to the outpatient clinics, the meetings where somebody was given their diagnosis, their attendance at physiotherapy, occupational therapy, the MRI scanners. He visited people at home and in the Alzheimer's Day Centre. He wrote this work as a reflection on that experience, as a research outcome. And he said that dementia can be a frightening and debilitating illness. But rather than respond to that aspect, Wilson tried to reflect the individual in front of him, keeping the person and the condition as separate as he could, and observing that often it seems that they can be seen as one and the same, especially in the late stages of the disease. So this movement 6, is the final movement of the work, and it takes the jazz standard Autumn Leaves as its inspiration. Short-term memory is often, as you know, more difficult to access than long-term. So he's leaning into the reminiscence of Autumn Leaves, a song which the people he worked with knew very well, and then the inevitable falling away of things as dementia progresses. So you'll hear the people playing this piece. You'll hear Miriam Cano Estelia on the saxophone. She is from the MA Music Therapy Programme. And she, if you like, in this work, the saxophone represents the person with dementia. And the string players, in a way, symbolically represent the other people around the person. So you'll hear Leela Clark-Carr on violin, Carlos Rabadan on viola, and the amazing Malachy Robinson on double bass, who we're very glad to have here. So these musicians are from the MA Classical Strings, and Malachy teaches at the Academy and works in the Irish Chamber Orchestra, as well as many other things. But just to say, I suppose, on this work, before you play, Ian Wilson said of this movement, there's this sense of somebody with dementia being off in their own world, sort of away in their own thoughts. And he wondered, is that comfortable for the person or not? And we don't really know. But he reflected on this when he wrote this piece. And perhaps some of the lonely moments of this disease. So the movement reflects the gradual disintegration of parts of the person's personality, although sometimes the person can carry on in their own world quite contentedly, as the saxophonist does here. So before I finish speaking and they play, I just want to say I hope that you enjoy this example of an arts-based research, which is an example of the interdisciplinary nature of working between these powerhouses in the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance and the Health Research Institute. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thanks to the musicians for that wonderful piece. They're now going to leave us, so if we can just give them a little bit of time just to pack up and go. I think they have other things to do. So next up is Dr. Lisa Kelly. Lisa's Director of Anna Music Therapy. And I think she's going to introduce Kevin Quaid, who's sitting there as well, and tell us a little bit about his story too. So thank you, Lisa.
Great. Do you want me to wait till they pack up, or am I good to go? I can keep going. Okay. I am just absolutely speechless after that. I think they deserve another round of applause. So I completed my PhD research at the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance last year, and I was delighted to be supervised by Professor Hilary Moss and Professor Ita Richardson. So this was an interdisciplinary research project which explored how telehealth music therapy may support people with dementia and their family caregivers living in the community. So this exploration very much involved expert by experience, and we have two of them here with us today, Kevin and Helena. So as you can see, it was an interdisciplinary project where we very much met in the middle. So we had Ita and her experience with LIRO, the music therapy department at the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance, and we also collaborated with the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland and the Dementia Research Advisory Team, which Kevin and Helena are a part of. And I just really want to acknowledge the support of the PPI Ignite network here at UL, who offered us a bursary which enabled us to bring the participants to UL to engage in the songwriting project. And also the Ageing Research Centre, where I had many different queries regarding PPI, and they were always very happy to oblige. So some of you may not be familiar with telehealth. So there are many different terms that are used throughout the literature. So telehealth, telemedicine, telepractice, teletherapy, and e-health. So they're all used interchangeably to describe the application of online technology to provide health or therapy intervention services for clients with specific health issues. So we very much focused on the first group here, which was live video or synchronous telehealth. So this is a two-way interaction between a patient and a healthcare provider using audio-visual telecommunications technology. So I suppose in terms of the rationale for the research, so why would a person with dementia not be able to attend in-person music therapy or community services in general? So there might be unavailability of service, so no music therapy within the area, dependent on their geographical location. So, if they're living up in North Donegal, or south of Kerry, that there might not be a music therapist available to them. Reduced mobility might also be a factor, that it's actually quite hard to get out of the house, and increased cognitive decline. And also, I suppose, to acknowledge unreliable access to transport. But I won't talk about the Irish transport system, so we'll move on. So, as I mentioned, it was very much underpinned by public and patient involvement, or which I'll call PPI. And we really, really wanted to ensure that our research was relevant and practical for people with dementia. So, it's very easy to, sit in the office and complete literature reviews and design an intervention, but if it's not actually applicable or appropriate to the people that we're providing the service for, then it's not going to be of relevance for them. So the PPI was embedded throughout the research from, I suppose, the outset. So, and the one quote that really stuck with me from our first meeting, one of the participants said to me, "We don't want more research that sits on a shelf. We want deliverables that can make an impact." And that really, I suppose, guided me throughout the 3 years of my PhD research going forward. So within those first few meetings with the PPI contributors, so there was 3 people living with dementia, and I suppose also to acknowledge that there are many forms of dementia. So we had 2 people living with Alzheimer's disease and Kevin, who has Lewy body dementia. So I suppose we wanted to guide us by creating these research priorities. So there was 3 altogether. So first was we wanted guidance on how a person with dementia or their caregiver selects what music experience may suit them best. So I remember one of the meetings, one of the ladies said to me, well, I'm not sure if I need music therapy yet. You know, that she wasn't at that stage of her journey. So it kind of became prominent that the understanding perhaps of music therapy wasn't there. So I suppose this might be applicable to many people living in the community. So we wanted to differentiate between, you know, music you might listen to on the radio, a community singing group, and music therapy. So that was one of the determining factors in developing our guide. The second was a need for a person-centred approach to be adopted when designing services with people with dementia. So there's a phrase, once you've met one person with dementia, you've only met one person with dementia, that everybody's experiences are very different. So we can't assume anything, that we have to collaborate with the client that we're working with. And I suppose the other priority then was to provide support to people with dementia who are unable to access community support services in person. So I suppose I wanted to focus on the guidance on how a person with dementia may select what music experience suits them best. So we translated this into a guide. So this guide was created following an extensive literature review on, I suppose, all of the different music experiences that are available for people with dementia. And then along with the PPI contributors, we developed this accessible guide that can be used by people with dementia, their family caregivers, social support workers, or perhaps people that work in dementia services, on helping a person decide what actually might suit them best. So as you can see, we included both in-person supports and online supports, I suppose because we were very aware that there are many people that can't actually access some of these services. And we also wanted to acknowledge that sometimes music may not be suitable for everyone, so that there are other psychosocial activities that people can engage in as well. So you can see the first question there. I'm not too sure if you can read it on the screen, but the first question is, do you have access to community support services? And there's a yes or a no answer. So depending on that, the person will either access online supports or in-person supports. And then we need to consider, does the person actually feel like they need additional psychosocial support? Do they want to engage in music therapy? Do they feel comfortable being part of a group? So we can't just assume these things that we need to ask. I suppose moving on, I worked with the PPI contributors for 3 years, so it was amazing. So I started my research in September 2020 in the thick of the COVID lockdown. So for months and months we met online having meetings, and then in August 2022 we finally got to meet in person in the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance, thanks to the bursary from PPI Ignite. And I suppose we felt like we knew each other, didn't we, after all those meetings? But it was such an incredible experience for me as a researcher, you know, hearing their stories. And we really, really wanted to capture this somehow. And I really love this quote by Staley and Barron. It says, involvement in research is a conversation that supports two-way learning. So I, as the researcher, had learned so much from them and their personal experience and what it is like to live with dementia, that I wanted to give something back to them as well as a music therapist. So from this, we decided that we'd used arts-based research methods to capture this involvement. So we did this through songwriting, and I'll never forget Kevin's face when I first suggested it in our online meeting. And he looked at me and he was like, sure, we'll give it a go. And, and we did. So I enlisted the help of Carol Corcoran, who was the former MA Songwriting course director, to help run this workshop with me. And I remember him asking me, what's the brief? And I said, just come into the room and you'll find out. And I don't think nobody knew what was going to happen, but I said, that's the beauty of it. We don't know. So we all got into a room 241 in the Irish World Academy, and they're like, we're writing a song? And I said, yes. And how are we going about it? And I was like, what do you want people to know? And it was amazing. We were in that room for an hour and a half, and they wrote the lyrics of a full song by themselves. All we did was scaffold it. musically, and it was incredible. So you can see here on the whiteboard, we were just scribbling words and phrases, and we crafted this into a song together. So we met again then in February 23, I believe, and we finished the song and put it all together. And there was 3 themes really that emerged from their experiences. That was empowerment, hope, and the importance of collaboration. So I'm going to play the song for you now so you can actually have a listen, but I'm just aware of the purposes of time as Kevin has another meeting he needs to attend. So I might actually just ask him about his experiences first before we play the song, if that's okay with everyone, and then we can let you go. Is that okay?
That's perfect, Lisa. Can you hear me? Yeah, because if I hear the song, I'll start to cry. Lisa was talking about not knowing what was happening going into the room. I hadn't a clue what was happening, and I was only wondering, what am I doing in there? But it all started over a conversation. And I had been at a do in Trinity College where Sir Terry Pratchett, when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, his PA said to him, "Terry, who are we going to tell?" And he said, "We'll tell everyone." And Carol wrote it down on the board. And that was the start of it. And we were talking about different things we were doing, and I said about a quote that I had made up in one of my books. And I actually made up the quote: "A photo captures a moment in time and a lifetime of memories." And the whole thing just flowed organically after that. Everyone, the carers, the people with dementias, and it's sick, bloody thing to have. I hate it. We told those stories and we picked words out of it and what it meant to us. And there isn't a line or there isn't a word in that song that hasn't such a meaning to every single one of it. It is so powerful. And I'll tell you another thing about it when you hear it. It's a bloody earworm. You can't get it out of your head for the day. But it has taught me, I do a lot of writing since I was diagnosed. I wouldn't write my name before I was diagnosed. And I'm on my 3rd book. The arts play such an important part for people with dementia. It is incredible. Music is at the top of the list, and always has been. Remember Glenn Campbell? He didn't know his name, but he could sing every song. Lately I found out that my sister-in-law, her mum, was non-verbal, she said, for 10 years. But every day she went in, she was singing. That's verbal. So music is such a powerful tool. Music can put you back to sleep at night. Music can bring back happy memories. Music will bring back feelings. And I think we got all that in this fabulous song, and I'm just thanking God that I'm not going to hear it before I leave. I would have so loved to stay with you. I have another engagement, but Hilary, and especially Lisa and Carol, your guidance for us and for me as a person with dementia is second to none. I do get very emotional about it, but you know, if I thought back to when I was diagnosed, that I'd wind up writing books, that I'd wind up writing a song, I would have said, you need to be locked up, not me. It's you have the dementia, not me. So there's nothing we can't achieve. Right, we have a disease, but I'm actually a stronger person since I got diagnosed and since I got diagnosed earlier. And that is strictly down to people like Lisa and Carol and Hilary. And thank you so much. I'd be forever in your debt.
Thank you. Okay, are you ready to hear the song? So we're actually currently in the process of making a professional recording of the song with the help of the NASC Academy Choir, directed by Kathleen Turner as well, and we're so appreciative of your involvement. So hopefully in the next few weeks that you will see and hear that. But for now, I will play you this video, and I hope it all works okay.
Thank you all so much. So I suppose I just want to end with
PPI doesn't have to be about ticking a box on, a research application. That, it can have such an important meaning, I think, for the people that are involved in as well. And, for us, I suppose this song has also been great as a creative dissemination method, in order to actually make this accessible to a wider audience, people that aren't actually, researchers, that it's really accessible and that the message of hope and empowerment really comes through as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. That was excellent. I think the video was amazing. It's so moving. I think we're now going to hear Helena's story. So, yeah, you don't need to go to the podium. Just grab the mic.
I suppose, first of all, just a nod to the song. It was just such a wonderful experience. And for me, as spousal care to Kevin, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I suppose they knew he had it before he was 50, but he was diagnosed at 51. And then 2 years later, diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. So as a spousal carer for somebody who has that type of dementia, this was such a powerful experience and a positive distraction to the mundane activities of Kevin. Had to give up driving due to hallucinations and spatial awareness when he was 53. He couldn't work any longer. He was a project manager and he couldn't read plans anymore. And we need these positive outlook activities. And they're as important as nurturing food for our vitamins, our minerals to our blood cells. And it is so wonderful that we were invited. We were the special people. There was Jerry, who had Alzheimer's, and his wife, Nuala, Helen Rochford Brennan, and her supporter, Carmel Gagan. Helen has Alzheimer's, and Kevin had Lewy body. And it was just the feeling that we got, and what I found most important in our situation was that it brought me back to the point where Maria Montessori, the wonderful early learning teacher, said that everyone must feel useful. And Kevin went home on a high from here. And after the Zoom meetings, we had a shed at home that he turned into his office. And when he going out to the Zoom meeting with Lisa, he came back with a skip in his step. He felt useful because he could no longer do anything like cutting the lawn or anything like that. Therefore, for the positive impact that came from your work and your attention to detail, really involving everybody, yourself and Professor Hilary and, of course, Ita here. It was just, you have no idea, and I don't think you will ever see the expanse and the beyondness of our gratitude for it and the positive impact it had in our lives while that was all going on. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Helena. That was lovely to hear. It's really great to get kind of your views and experience of what's happened. And I think, again, it's such a moving story and such a success story for music therapy. It's lovely to hear. So we're going to go back to kind of academics, and we're going to hear from people who are supporting supporting the project and LinkedIn, and it's this concept that it's a very multidisciplinary piece of work. And to start, I think just in a change to the program, Rose Galvin can't make it, so she's been replaced, but I can actually use exactly the same introduction for Katie. So Professor Katie Robinson is Professor in Physiotherapy, and she's a founding member of the Aging Research Centre at UL, and is also Director of the Aging Research Centre, or lead of the Aging Research Centre in our university. So off you go.
Alan, and almost the exact same introduction, except I'm occupational therapy and Rose is physiotherapy. No, it's fine. Alan was instrumental in bringing occupational therapy to the university, so it's even more of a faux pas. But occupational therapy and music therapy are very much aligned, and I've had lots of good experiences of working with music therapists over my career, but especially working with Hilary over the last number of years in the Aging Research Centre. It's very tough to follow the video, the performance, Kevin's narrative, and your narrative, Alina, as well. So I just want to say that I'm honoured to be part of the panel. It's been a gorgeous experience this morning, and Research Week is very much a celebration of research, and I think that is absolutely what we have heard and experienced here today, is a celebration of the impact of research that's done really well, and research that's done really well is rigorous and methodologically strong, but also responds to the preferences and the priorities of people for whom we are. The research purpose and intent is about improving outcomes for a particular population. And Lisa, I think you should be the ambassador for postgraduate training at the University of Limerick. The calibre and standard of work that you have completed as part of your PhD is just exceptional. On every level, in terms of academic impact, the quality of the PPI work, the dissemination activities. So I think, when they're doing these jazzy campaigns and putting people's posters up, you should feature. I want to congratulate Hilary and her colleagues on this event, and a great turnout to reflecting the quality of the event. We know for sure that the Irish population is ageing, like many populations in Europe are ageing. And in Ireland, our population is actually ageing more rapidly than any other country in Europe. And when most of us here in the room are old, we will be part of the majority part of the population, older adults. And it's so often presented as a problem, a challenge for health services, a problem in terms of pensions and resources. But, we should see this as a complete success story. It's a longevity dividend, and to ensure that we all benefit from this, it's so important that services, supports are put in place to enable people to flourish in their later years. And that's very much what the Aging Research Centre is all about. Hilary is a founding member of the centre, and it really is a great place to work, as Alan has said repeatedly, the value of multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary practice is so clear when you work together with a group of researchers in the Aging Research Centre. And even though I'm about as musically inept as they come, when I was listening to this performance by our colleagues who've had to leave early, I thought, isn't it so reflective of what it's like to work in an interdisciplinary group as a group of researchers? You have to know each other so well, get to know each other, to work in tune with one another without stepping on each other's toes, respecting difference, learning from one another, and ultimately the work is enhanced by the group, the contribution of every individual. And for us in UL, under the Health Research Institute over the last almost a decade, I think one thing that has been transformative has been the expertise that has developed in the institution in public and patient involvement, and that has absolutely been spearheaded by a small number of colleagues, and Professor Anne McFarlane is in the audience today. I think there has been a genuine culture shift and change, as Lisa said, a move away from a tokenistic view of PPI to, what we saw today, which is, genuinely, as you said, Alan, humbling and moving to listen to, where there is just really high quality involvement of people. And so I would just like to finish by congratulating you all and wishing you the best for future endeavours, and handing over to my colleague Ita, who made the point to me this morning that her and Hilary would never have come together had the structure of the Aging Research Centre not brought them together. And So in some small way, the centre contributed to in a big way. In a big way. Thank you. So best wishes to all, and thank you for inviting me to come along.
Going over there, I should do the formal introduction and just say that Ita is a Professor of Software Quality in the Department of Computer Science. And I'm trying not to mess up my introductions now and make more enemies.
And I wasn't even listening, so I can't correct you. So it's very funny because I'm not someone who suffers from imposter syndrome, let me know. But listening to all of this and watching all of this, I kind of sometimes stand back and say, how did I get involved in this in the first place? Now, what's actually missing is my title slide, which said, "That's so cool." Okay? And the story behind that, so I am going to tell the story, is I was at last week at the International Conference on Software Engineering. So this is our flagship conference. Like, lots of people from Lero go there. We have to be there. We have to be seen. We have to be at it. And one of the comments back from somebody when I was explaining about my research, and I specifically spoke about this project, her comment was, "That's so cool." And I thought, she's right, that is so cool. And the other thing I want to mention, and it's going back to Lisa and the day of her Viva, so she had an internal examiner from CSIS, Computer Science and Information Systems. After the Viva, he specifically thanked us for having him involved in such an amazing project. You know, which I was blown away with because, you know, I'm in CSIS and we don't often hear those sorts of compliments about the arts. So well done there. So I was asked to talk about interdisciplinary research, and I suppose for me, you know, what have I learned doing interdisciplinary research? And I came up with these 6 points, and I'm just going to work through them, and I'm not even going to talk about them to start with. So interdisciplinary research is important. So this photograph here is our new Lero director. He gave the keynote talk at ICSI last year. One of the beauties of watching an online talk is you can do a quick screen print. And he said, what a field like software engineering requires is diversity. And the bottom line, only then will we be able to offer the novel solution that software engineering needs and maximises our impact. And I saw that and I thought, that's exactly why I'm involved in interdisciplinary research. And the very next day, Daniela, who's another very high-level researcher, said this from Adriana Porterfeld from Google, that humanities is not separate from engineering. So I suppose they both reflected the way I like to think about how we can do software engineering and what we can do. Secondly, I have found that interdisciplinarity widens the scope of what can be researched. So these are just 4 of the projects that I've done recently enough with older adults. And interestingly, I was at a talk one day from a group in Dublin around older adults, and the word was that older adults were those over 50. That's the European definition. So I'm very old. I'm one of Katie's people. We've worked with people with mild IDD. We've obviously done this work with people with dementia, and we've done work with breast cancer survivors. So interestingly, from a software engineering technology point of view, I kind of don't mind what the healthcare condition is. I can see that we can support people living with those conditions, and we've done work with those. So it really widens the scope of what I can do. Research methods from other disciplines are useful to our disciplines, and I suppose the PPI is one that we have had that I would never have known about without the Ageing Research Centre. And yet some of the work that I do now is in PPI. We've started a new project with a local company about older adults living in homes with technology, and immediately we're getting involved with PPI. And again, with an occupational therapist, Anne-Marie Morrissey is on that project. So again, another outcome of the Research Centre. But the one I want to talk about today is photographs Photo Voice. I don't know if anyone's heard about Photo Voice. Oh, well, this is the first one, of course, is the music one. And I thought, well, I can't really talk about that because Lisa's going to do that. But one thing I did want to mention is Lisa also did Lero-supported documentary on music technology and dementia. And again, the fact that we were able to support that through a Science Foundation Ireland Research Fund, again, shows the importance of the interdisciplinarity. But the idea of Photo Voice is that it encourages people to use their voice and provides them with a platform to do so with the medium of photography. So this was a group of women who had breast cancer. They were breast cancer survivors. The project was looking at how software and technology could support the physical activity that they needed to recover from breast cancer. And we got them to go out and to take photographs about technology, about breast cancer, and about physical activity. And we came up with a book and posters, but there's just an example of one of the technology ones. Support is always just a swipe away. And that's the book. It's online. We have posters. Now, going back to COVID, the posters were displayed at International Women's Day here in March 2020. I'm sad to say they're still in my office since that day. I walked out and left them, but I am working on getting them displayed again. But again, just some work that we did using Photo Voice, and I thought I'd just take this opportunity to throw it out, and if anyone wants to talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it. Also that software engineering can bring learning to other disciplines, and I never lose the opportunity but to say that if you're working with software, if you're working with technology, there are regulations around technology that have to be considered. So it's not about going off and getting somebody to do an app that can help somebody to do whatever. Once health professionals are involved, it becomes a medical device. Once it's a medical device, you have to think about regulations. So just to be aware of that. And also then from a public body point of view, we have to have accessible web and mobile applications. Publication opportunities, you know, there are, and there's difficulties, and it's a big debate as to whether this really works or not. But there are journals who will actually publish. So there's, you know, one of the ones that we had, Followed the Musical Road, and that's from what did I say? I have it over there, International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, and they have published, and a good impact factor to that, certainly in our world. And I suppose the other one, Lisa's delighted. See, she didn't send me the photographs I asked her for, so this is what she got stuck with. So this was Lisa's graduation day, the Viva and the party afterwards. And we've had a great time. I think that is probably worth saying. We've had it's been a really good, happy, healthy, rigorous relationship. I don't think we had any row. You know, we've had, you know, what do we say, good discussions. But so, you know, it is interesting and fun. But finally, interdisciplinary research is important. And without this group of us working together, the Follow the Musical Road would never have been completed. And it's been a fantastic output from the research. So that's all I want to say. I always acknowledge. And the references, always reference. And thank you. I never lose the academic bit.
Thanks, Ita. That was great. So our last speaker today is Professor Helen Phelan. Helen's Director of the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance.
Thank you, Alan. I've decided to come up here to the podium not because I have any slides, but because I'm slightly undone by the seminar and I feel the need of a bit of support. And I think I don't feel ungrateful for being undone. I think it's very rare that in this kind of research space we're invited not only to think but to feel. And there's been such a tremendous amount of that in the seminar today. I'm going to bring the kind of presentational part of this seminar to a close before we have time for some questions and answers. And I'd like to do that with 3 short observations. The first of these is that I've worked at the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance now for almost 30 years. I've been the director for almost 2. And over the course of that time, it has been a source of particular satisfaction to me to see the growth of leadership from my colleagues in this arts and health space, from Hilary, who has led this whole event today, from my colleagues Trina, Kathleen, Orla, who have taken up a leadership role in articulating to all of us the importance of remembering the role that the arts have to play in understanding our own health and the health of others. Culture is often described as a well, a source from which we can draw on to negotiate our way through the world. And I think if culture is a well, I propose it is one of our greatest sources of well-being, of personal well-being, community and societal well-being, and the well-being of our planet home. We have powerful cultural tools at our disposal: our singing, our music, our storytelling, our poetry. And it behoves us to understand that culture is not about adding a little extra color to our existence. It is the very source of how we negotiate the challenges, the joys, and the sorrows of the human condition. My second observation is that I am so happy to see all of this work being presented in the context of the University of Limerick Research Week. Those of us here who are musicians know that universities love to roll us out when there is a need for a bit of entertainment. And we are always delighted to provide it. It's part of what we do. It is part of our identity. But they can be a little slower sometimes to recognize that music, as you've heard today, is a way of doing research. And what do we mean by research? It's a way of understanding how we negotiate our way in the world through the life cycle, through health, and through illness. It is an important way of knowing. It is the knowing of lived experience. It is the knowing of creative, cognitive, embodied experience, as has been so magnificently shared with us here today. My final observation is that music is not only an important way of doing research, but as we've heard from everybody here today, it is one of our most powerful methods of participatory research. Research with people, not on people. And this is where I unashamedly remind you that we have a workshop on participatory research methods immediately after this session over in the School of Medicine, where you can learn about photo voice, among other things. And at 1 o'clock, we will be in the School of Medicine foyer, we will be launching the Participatory Health Research Unit. The University of Limerick, and I am a very proud member of the University of Limerick, is a leader in the use of these innovative participatory research methods, including music. Participatory research reminds us, at its most fundamental, that we have so much to learn from each other. Approaching this with lived experience, with expertise, but also with humility and honesty is at the very heart of this approach. And I think you'll agree with me that there could be no better demonstration of this than what we have heard today. Gorf Mila Mahagut.
Okay, thanks, Helen, for that very eloquent finish to our presentations today. You know, it's great to hear your perspective on this. You know, and I know your long history with the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance. You know, and all the work that it's done. It's something of a miracle. We've finished early, so. I think that's a first for these sessions. So that gives us time to have some questions. So, thanks if we can start here, yep.
Thank you. I wanted to jump in straight away because I have to go and examine now. But I'm so glad that I made time to be here this morning and hear about this work again, because it's so precious and important. And I just wanted to offer a comment, and particularly for Helena, and to feedback to Kevin as well. I had the total privilege of hearing the song when it was first performed, and then getting to learn it and teach it to our choir in Nask. And I just wanted to share that sense amongst the singers, because we discussed the words as we learned it. And it was such a beautiful demonstration of how arts-based research can interrogate an idea and then also communicate a lived experience. And that bridge that you wrote, it was, the words helped me out here, Lisa. So we still dance, we still sing, we still laugh, do everything, we still work, we still drive, we are alive. And we discussed those statements, and we sang those statements out loud. And there was such a powerful demonstration of not seeing a human by their diagnosis, but seeing humanity and experience and joy. And it was profoundly impactful, and such a brilliant example of how this research ripples and ripples and ripples. So I just want to thank you deeply for that experience, for me as a conductor and for us as singers.
Sorry. Can I respond to that and say thank you very, very much indeed? And the last line in that, we are alive. What we have to remember is, no matter what type of chronic disease you have, but especially with a dementia which is progressive and incurable, we have to live with dementia and live with a quality of life. It is a family illness, and a quality of life. The first question Kevin asked when he was diagnosed to the consultant was, how long have I got? And the reality is, every person with dementia is different, but we live with it. We don't give up the day you have the diagnosis. You start going on the pathway that you can get the best quality out of life. And with music therapy, now we're involved in lots of things as advocates with for dementia anyway, but I'm involved with the most wonderful, wonderful mindful music therapy with Professor Hillary. I started on Zoom with her about 1.5 years ago, and it's dementia carers. And the most interesting thing about it is we've never met. There are people from Donegal down to, the back end of Kerry, as they say. But we know each other on a different level. There's a level of understanding in our group. And from the mindful meditation therapy music, it's on Mondays. So in this Monday mindful meditation music therapy sessions, what's amazing is, what I find is, it's nurturing, and I feel nurtured, and my health and well-being feels all the better of getting this time out. Even if I have to go to the car to get my time out, I feel nurtured for that lunchtime session. But the interesting thing about it is, it just doesn't finish at that session. It kind of longingly lingers with me throughout the week till the following Monday. So for that, thank you very much, Professor Hillary.
And a question from Anne.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Thank you for a fantastic seminar this morning. I'm really quite speechless, but Lisa, Hillary, Ita, and everyone involved in the research, I've seen this presented before, and I'm just as impacted this morning. I really want to say thank you for your kind comments about PPI in Limerick and the work we've put into developing meaningful PPI and promoting participatory health research. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that this is happening as a result of the Health Research Board and the Irish Research Council's commitment to a research culture change in Ireland, which has led to the PPI Ignite funding. And just acknowledging Adele Murphy's here today from the University of Galway, the National Office, who lead us and coordinate all of the work of PPI Ignite in 7 universities. So thank you for that, and just congratulations again on an absolutely excellent work and seminar. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. And maybe I could ask a question, because I'm very impressed with having been on the receiving end of the health system and I'd spent a lot of time in UHL. I'm very impressed by the dignity that you bring to the healthcare process. Especially for older people, their perception of the healthcare process, it can be, there's quite a loss of dignity. Personal dignity, and it can be difficult for them. It's lovely to see the experience that the music therapist can provide. Now, I've worked with music therapists in UL nearly since I got here, because I worked with my colleague Jane Edwards when we set up the clinical therapies, and I worked on physiotherapy, and Jane worked on occupational therapy, which is why I sometimes forget what people are doing. But Jane was very much, this profession should be recognised by CORU. It should be a nationally recognised profession. Where are we with that?
Sadly, we're on a very slow journey, and the Irish Association of Creative Arts Therapists have been trying to get onto the top of the list, and we're still down the list behind some other professions. The honest answer is I don't know, and to a certain level, I've given up. I've been in this field for so long that I feel like it's the younger activist music therapists who are taking this fight now, but. It's really needed, and I'm not sure what I can say. We've provided the evidence. We're a very small profession, and I think that makes it quite difficult because they're dealing with bigger professions first. But yeah, it's a good question.
Could I add a comment to that, Alan? Because I think this is somewhere where maybe our health colleagues here in the university can help. A very concrete example of the impact of this on the music therapy profession is the lack of a clinical placement officer, for example. So most of the clinical programs in the university have designated people to help with placements. For music therapy, our colleagues have to do all of that themselves. So just small examples like that, it limits the number of people we can train. It means all of the work of developing those placements. So I think there are, even while those wider work is being done, there's work that we can do here within the university to advocate for those kinds of important recognitions of the discipline.
Thank you. I think, in order to avoid people having to run across the bridge now, because there is another event. Oh, sorry, is there another question there? I missed. Apologies. Yeah, apologies.
And maybe this one is for Ita. I repeat everybody's comments on how wonderful the morning has been. I followed Lisa's progress, and this is just such a fantastic ending. I congratulate you on your bravery of stepping outside of your computer science into this world. I think it's brilliant. To me, this is one of the real success stories of this. As well, I have 2 questions for you. What are there opportunities? I think here you're probably speaking to the converted, all people who are maybe coming from our side. Are there opportunities to share this in your communities and at conferences with software engineers and so on? And secondly, what is the support that's most required for somebody coming from computer science or an engineering area to engage in this type of work? Thanks.
So firstly, yes, like I've been, working in healthcare back in probably around 2006, but it would have been very much on the regulation side, and then things shifted and it's now very much on the implementation side. And certainly at our conferences, we would have, for example, we have a requirements engineering workshop, a requirements engineering on well-being and health session. So requirements engineering is where we go around collecting the requirements. So that's a group that starts. So internationally, there definitely are. What I would say on the second front is we are certainly seeing across the European Union funding through Science Foundation Ireland now, there's lots of funding there. The Irish Research Council have always been very supportive of interdisciplinary projects, and I would say that's probably where I kind of started, not totally. But certainly with LERO, we're funded through Science Foundation Ireland. There's a new research centre's call at the moment. The big thing is there has to be social sciences, humanities, interdisciplinarity involved. And Philip Nolan, who's the Director Designate of Taigéireann, in an Irish Times article specifically talked about older people and how the sciences should be supporting them, because exactly as Katie says, we have an ageing population. So there definitely is recognition in the funding bodies. I suppose part of it is then trying to make sure that people who are that we can get people who are interested. And we've a health informatics masters, for example. There's another woman who has joined us recently enough, Katie Crowley, who's leading up the technology side of the Health Research Institute. And even within the Health Research Institute, we have four pillars, is it, Alan? 4 main pillars, one of which is technology and digital health, whatever. But, so it's becoming more and more recognised. But it has been recognised within the University of Limerick. And I think as well, maybe because of the way the healthcare side has grown, it wasn't initial, like Alan talked there about, helping to start set it up, that really has allowed for lots of people to get to know each other and to work. So, yeah, and the PPI has supported us as well, so.
Oh, one more, just time for the last one at the end back there.
Thank you. I'll be brief though. I just wanted to acknowledge how much of a privilege it is to be here as a student and to have been involved today. And it is truly, because it's so important to see your teachers, staff, your lecturers do the research you then are using in your assignments and have that first-hand experience of seeing that impact and understanding what we are doing and why we are doing what we're doing, and also seeing everything that's involved in it and everyone that needs to take part in it. So yes, thank you so much for everything. It's a privilege, and please fund these people, like whomever needs to hear this. Thank you.
Okay, that's us for today. I know everyone has places to go, so just final chance to thank Hilary and her colleagues and the musicians who've now left, for a fantastic session. I think there was so much learning there. I think it's such a great showpiece of that interdisciplinary work and how adding different researchers together from different disciplines can really be additive and produce something that's much greater than the individual parts. So thanks so much to Hilary for organising this and to all the speakers. Thank you.